Welcome to LOP Radio. This is Entropy, your host. It is August 16th, 2013. My guest is Coolhandluke74 tonight. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Luke. Are you there?
I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, can you give us some background on your experience with an episode that you had that you were wanting to discuss on the air?
I've had probably about a couple episodes though, but it all started when I was younger. I had a fascination, almost an obsession with UFOs and aliens. Even in grade school, I'd look up books with UFOs and alien experiences. It just fascinated me. I was drawn to it, basically. And I was almost terrified of the gray alien face, basically, just
wow,
some kind of primal fear had installed in me, whatever, And even when I was in my bed sleeping, I always feared the window, like something was looking in on me and stuff. It's not really normal for a kid my age, basically.
How old were you at the time?
It was grade school, probably about third grade, so I was about, 8 or 9, around there.
Were you watching any movies or TV shows that had anything to do with the face or the image of the gray alien?
Oh, not really gray, but, it was a movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I remember watching as a kid.
Were these experiences before or after you saw that film?
The scary thing is before.
Gotcha. So what's your earliest what's your earliest recollection of an experience with an entity that would be paranormal?
At the time, I was younger, and we were a real close family. We come from an Italian family, and I was spending the night over at my cousin's house, right? And she told me a story. She lives on a farm, and she saw some weird lights in the sky, and she thought nothing of it, and she went to bed. And the next thing, she woke up, she looked out the window, there was this weird handprint on the window. And it wasn't a human hand either. And she kind of freaked me out a little bit, though, kind of got shivers down my spine. Because I also had, dreams, what I think were dreams about UFOs in the sky and stuff, flying over my house and stuff, Like I said, I thought they were dreams, they could have been reality.
But you're saying that it actually left a physical handprint upon the window?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
And there was no digital cameras back then, of course, so she didn't take a picture of it, though, but she was really scared and freaked out by it.
So did she see anything outside the window, too?
She didn't want to talk about it after that.
And what do you remember about that experience?
Just sticking out, though, there's like a physical proof of something looking down in the window, basically, that something was actually there. And whether, she in her mind it was something different, but there's just proof maybe something else out there, more or less. You have these weird lights in the sky before you go to sleep, then she wakes up and looks out the window, and there's a weird handprint in the window,
So there were weird lights in the sky. When you were younger, did you see things in the sky before this happened?
Yes, it was at sunset one time. It was my early teens. There was like a orangish glow, scar shapes in the horizon, basically. Going faster than any plane at the time, in my opinion.
Did this happen a lot?
A couple times in my childhood, I'd see weird things in the sky, but more or less, I had these really vivid dreams about UFOs and stuff, and seeing these alien creatures land and stuff like that, just over and over again. I mean, like I said, I had a huge fascination with aliens and UFOs as a kid, and I did see a couple things in the sky, but...
Did your fascination with UFOs start before or after any experience that you can recall that might have been real?
Like I say, even before all these things I've seen before, I had a fascination with them, And I also remember as a kid, suddenly seeing something in the sky one time. I drew a diagram on a piece of paper and I put a UFO on it. I sure wish I saved that. I don't know, show you guys today though, but my dad both saw it. It was coming down, kind of looked like the space capsule, but it wasn't, There was no moon landings at the time, obviously, in the 80s. It was just hovering over and it disappeared. But the biggest experience I've had was when I was when I was 18, 19. I was taking my girlfriend home at the time, and I saw this craft. It was just above treetop level, which is, illegal for any plane to do. So I stopped the car in the middle of the road and got out and took a look at it. No sound was coming from it whatsoever. It was totally silent, just hovering over the treetops. It's kind of like a triangle-shaped craft with weird lights on it. So I watched for a little bit, and I got back in the car and drive her home. As I'm driving, I see it, it's hovering over the city, and all of a sudden a spotlight comes out, which I don't know any plane that does that, looking on the ground for something more or less. Just kept watching, and then all of a sudden it took off out of nowhere. It was gone.
The spotlight, did it look like a spotlight like you would shine from a standard spotlight sort of light, or were there any special qualities to it that would make it seem like it was from a different technology or time period?
It was a very straight and powerful beam. It was a white light, basically. I mean, I don't know any aircraft or helicopters are allowed to do that around treetop level, over the city.
If it was a helicopter or aircraft, did it look like a standard halogen or incandescent light, or did it have any special qualities to it that stood out to you?
I remember seeing like a green and a red light on it, which that's kind of unusual for an airplane, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it was triangle shaped and there's no sound from it. Every aircraft we have, including the Stealth, makes a sound.
Right.
It was just really eerie. And at the time, I wasn't even scared of it. I was more fascinated with it than I was scared.
Now, you're saying you were in your late teens at that time.
Yes.
At the time when you were staying with her, and there were actual handprints on the window, how old were you then?
The farm story was probably when I was 11 or 12, I have to say.
Do you recall any more details about that?
No, not really. It's a blank for me. I remember her telling me the story, basically, and that was it. Then we talked about it afterwards a little bit, and we all had a little fascination with UFOs at the time, It's like some kids do, though, but we all three of us have seen stuff in the past that, makes them believe that there is something else out there,
Right. Now, when you say see something in the past, does anything stand out? Does anything really stand out in your memory about your past experiences with your fascination with this subject? Which you really experienced or may have experienced that may have increased this fascination?
I've had weird marks on my body before. I have weird scratch marks, like little scoop marks on my skin, whatever. And just waking up in the middle of the night just being terrified of something, and there's nothing wrong at all. It's just unexplained stuff.
Do you recall ever seeing one of these beings?
Not as a kid. As an adult, yes.
When was your next experience from the time that you saw the triangular shaped craft that zoomed off into the sky that you can recall? When did that happen?
I have to say a couple years later, basically, and bits and pieces of memory come back to me from time to time.
And how old were you then?
Right, 22, 23.
Can you recall your next experience after that episode and tell us what happened?
I remember being on this ship. It's not a military ship or any American ship at all. It was totally alien in nature. There was beings there, probably about 5 foot tall. Orange skin, like light orange skin. Orange-brown skin, I'd have to say. Their face was kind of unique. It wasn't your typical gray alien at all. It was something totally different. Both sides of her face were kind of flat, basically, like perfectly flat, whatever, and little flat angles on her forehead and stuff like that. Kind of like the Cardassians in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, more or less. But way different. And I remember being shown the ship a little bit in some areas. And how they pilot the ship was totally different than anything we ever had before. There's no controls at all. There's like a little panel they put their hand on and they control the ship mentally or telepathically, basically. It goes wherever they think it's to go, which is way beyond what we were capable of doing right now. Some talk, in the military that they want to have a plane read our brainwaves and stuff, but we're nowhere near that right now. I remember being asked some questions and stuff and being assured that I wouldn't be harmed in any way or hurt. They're just curious about the human race in general.
Do you remember what they asked you?
Just vaguely here and there, more or less.
Anything specific? Any specific questions?
I remember more of them telling me stuff than more of me asking questions, more or less. I know I asked them where they're from, and they showed me a constellation, which I can't remember to this day, though. They're light years away from us, so.
And when they showed you where they were from, was there anything that stood out about it? Did they show you any details of their home world or their society, maybe their way of thinking?
They have a home world, and they're also based on other planets, too, throughout the galaxy. They're a very, very advanced race. They said they've been around for a very long time, and they've been watching us for a long time, too.
Okay, during this encounter, did they give you an idea of what motivates them to be interested in the human race?
They say the human race is a very unique species, that we have capabilities that other races don't have. And we're not anywhere near close to our potential, basically. They're kind of saddened that we're always in these wars all the time. We're not getting along trying to advance ourselves. And they said they have had some influence upon our development, too, throughout the ages, without our knowledge.
What would you base your feeling of fear upon your encounter with these entities upon? Did they seem menacing, or did they seem to be intimidating in any kind of way?
Not even that at all. They were more curious about me and everything else more than anything, though. They're not harmful in any way. They were, nice. There's no aggression toward me at all. I mean, they asked me to do a couple tests on me, and I said, fine, blood tests, hair samples, and stuff like that.
Did they tell you what these tests were for?
No, they did not. They said our DNA is really unique, and that's one aspect of the human race they like about it. They were always trying to advance ourselves in some way.
How many times would you say that you have met with these entities? Does it continue until now, or did it abruptly stop at some point?
I was on vacation in Florida earlier this year, and I had a dream, which I think it was a dream about them. So I'm not sure if it was actually another abduction or just a dream, though. But it was really vivid and clear dream.
And what happened to this dream?
The dream was a little disturbing, actually. That race and another race were actually fighting in space over something. Then they came down and landed on the ground, and I came up to them, and they took off with me in it. And that's the last I remember of it.
Now you're saying that our race and their race were fighting over something?
No, it was a different alien race.
Oh, a different alien race. I'm sorry, yes. I misunderstood you. And did you get a glimpse of what this different alien race was like?
They'd be known as the Greys, as we call them.
Have you ever encountered anything similar to a Grey?
From my recollection, probably not, but something about them just terrifies me when I see the face of a Grey, basically. Even as a child, it's terrified me for no reason. If you ask me, they're probably not a good alien race. They don't have our best interest in mind.
Did the alien race that you encountered educate you any on the Grey species, or is it just a feeling or a sort of hunch that you have about them?
I do believe they told me they're an emotionless race that have nothing good intentions for humans, that they're the ones behind the cow mutilations and some human mutilations too as well.
So you're saying that this race that you encountered actually acknowledged the existence of another alien race?
They've told me there's various races throughout the galaxy that we're not unique in any way, and that there's thousands of other species out there. Some advanced enough to travel stars, some not. Yeah, there's more alien life out there than we think there is, he said.
In your opinion, that there's thousands of alien species out there, which some of which are capable of interstellar travel and getting here, um, what would be their motivation to be in seclusion and to stay in secrecy from being detected from our own people?
Well, he's told me the reason why many species do not come near the planet Earth or interact with humans is because we are a warlike race, and they're afraid that if they do land, that they'll be captured or if not fired upon by military forces.
Would their technology not be sufficient enough to counter that sort of response?
It would be, but it would change the course of our species too if they made themselves known and they were fighting with us. And they have a rule of not interfering unless absolutely necessary.
Now, you said that there's some physical evidence besides the handprints that you have had some encounters with these beings and they did some tests. Have you ever had anything medically verified that was anomalous to support the idea that you did encounter an alien?
This one time I was doing some painting and I fell off a ladder, got scared enough, which is my own fault. So I went to the doctor to get checked out. And as they were checking out my nose, they said there was a hole up in the nose bone. So he asked me, do you need cocaine or any drugs? Like, no, I don't need drugs at all, especially cocaine. I have a heart condition as it is, and that'd just kill me, basically. It was a perfectly round hole up there for no reason. It kind of fascinated the doctor a little bit. He was for a couple minutes, he just asked me a bunch of questions about it and just kept looking up in there and stuff. Like,
Do you have any recollection of how that happened?
None whatsoever. That's the scary part about it.
Are there any other physical traits that you may relate to this experience?
I had weird scratches on my body when I was younger, and like little scoop marks on my hands and my legs, which have healed up over the years, obviously. But I remember going to the school nurse when I was younger with this weird little scratch mark on my arm, and it's like, well, do you have any pets at all? Like, I didn't have any pets at the time, no cats, no dogs, and it was like 3 little scratch marks, basically, like a claw mark, more or less, on my right arm. And nurse was a little fascinated by it and stuff, there was no animals, no pests, like, no, none of my knowledge.
At that time, were you having any weird experiences or dreams that may have related to those physical traces of injury or evidence to?
I remember one time when I was sleeping, I left the window open, and I woke up for no reason. I looked out the window. There was a huge fireball going across the sky. And there was no noise coming from whatsoever, and I don't know why I would wake up for it, just to see that, though. It wasn't lighting up the sky or anything. It was just like a little fireball going across the sky, more or less. And I thought nothing of it. We went back to sleep. It just kind of felt kind of weird, though. I woke up at that exact moment when it was flying over the sky, and I saw it through my window.
How often did you see these unidentified flying objects? As far as being able to see it and being able to say, hey, that's a UFO or that's an unidentified thing in the sky. How many times do you remember?
Probably 4 times throughout my life.
Okay. And you were the youngest at which time?
Youngest prior to be during when I saw the orange glowing disc. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old.
Okay. And from the time you were 8 or 9 years old and the next 3 times, how old were you during those times?
From 8 to 9, probably, then 14 and 15, then when I was 19, then my late 20s.
Out of those episodes, were there any similarities in the sightings or things that got your attention as far as that's the same thing that happened then? Or did it seem like there were different episodes with different characteristics?
Different episodes with different characteristics, I'd say.
And during all this time, how many times have you had dreams or memories of an encounter with a strange entity that that you described earlier?
Dreams of a strange entity, probably about 10 times in my life. Dreams about UFOs, 50 to 100, if they are dreams.
Is there anything that happened to make you think that they aren't dreams, besides the incident with the physical?
Sometimes after the dreams, I'd be really thirsty for some water or whatever. I feel really disoriented afterwards, or just in pure terror.
Did the species always look the same?
It either looked like the gray species, the gray aliens we call them, or the species that were more friendly toward me. They were probably more reptilian in nature.
And when they spoke to you, did they actually speak to you, or did they use their telepathy to communicate with you?
Telepathy.
Did you ever hear them make noise?
I did, but it was such a weird, strange language that I couldn't describe it to you. It's like nothing you ever heard before.
And did you ever get any sort of trait of personality off of them? Did they seem to be individualistic, or did they have a hive sort of mentality? Did they seem like drones? How did they come across to you as actual physical beings as far as their individuality and purpose, or their or were they just playing along as a team?
It was like a team effort, kind of like the Borg, though, but they're a little more individualized, basically, though. But they were all in sync with each other, though. It was really unusual.
But you did get a good trait that they, I'm sorry, you did pick up on some idea that they had their own conscience.
Yes, they did smile at me a couple times, so I'm pretty sure that's probably universal, you know. The gray, not the gray ones, but the orange reptilian species, the orangish brown, were
Did
more
they,
accommodating.
do they seem to have names or identities?
They were identified with each other, but not by a name. It's hard to explain, actually. Kind of like a different sound. Not really like a name, whatever. It's just weird how they communicate and stuff. It's nothing like we do.
When people meet strangers or they interact with people that they haven't met, sometimes they can fill each other out, and they know, you know, what the person they're talking to is about, or they know, you know, a little hint or a clue as far as their motive or their motivation. Did you get any sense of that off of these, or any sort of idea on what each one of them may be interested in? Or did it seem like they were hiding something?
Some of the things they didn't want to tell me, or they refused to tell me, basically, because they were not ready for it yet. And again, it's against their belief system. But they were forthcoming with some information, though.
What information did they tell you?
That they have been visiting us for thousands of years, and they have influenced us from time to time, which includes some of our DNA, too, which I felt was kind of freaky and kind of scary at the same time.
Did they reveal to you anything about humanity's path or its future, or their current operations dealing with human beings, that would indicate things that maybe the listeners want to be aware of?
He said if we don't destroy ourselves with war or other means, we have a great potential in the universe that most other species do not have. Maybe we did not get into why either. And they said, though, even though they're forbidden to directly intervene with our species to change it either way, that if we came to the point that we were going to destroy ourselves completely, genocide, that they would step in and save some of us, that our race could go on, perhaps elsewhere. When I asked them, why did you have such a high regard for humans and why do you want to see us, go on? And what they said next kind of put a chill to my spine, that they had a influence on our development and our evolution.
Did they indicate why they picked us to cultivate in such a manner?
They wouldn't tell me that. It would be revealed to us later on.
Did you get the impression that we actually had the natural potential, or was it the idea that we were their sort of experiment, and that the experiment had potential?
They said we were done just fine on our own, but they gave us some abilities that some people have, psychic abilities throughout the ages, as an experiment. They would not say what the experiment was for or what they expected out of it either. But they have mingled in our DNA from time to time.
Did you get a sense that they were being honest with you, or did you get a sense that they may have been hiding some things?
They were being honest, but they were hesitant about a number of things, from what I remember, that we were not ready as a species to know yet.
Can you describe their ship?
It was metallic, but it was like a metal I've never seen before, basically, inside. And there was different chambers, different rooms within the saucer, some of which I was not showing. But that part's more kind of vague to me about it, though. I remember the control room, like I said, there was no, like we have in our airplanes, controls, buttons everywhere. It was just like flats. And you put your hand on there, and it would show a picture of where they were going, There was no screen at all. It was all of a sudden a picture would appear out of nowhere, basically.
Was it three-dimensional?
Yes, it was three-dimensional.
Were there any windows?
There was no windows at all on the craft.
What about doors?
Yes, there was some doors, from my recollection.
Did you recall how they opened?
It'd be like a sliding door kind of thing. They'd wave their hand and the door would open.
What about lighting? How was the interior of the craft lit?
That's the really interesting question, because there was no lights anywhere, but it was illuminated everywhere too, though. It wasn't dark anywhere, but there was no lights at all. Or somehow it was illuminated, but I couldn't tell how.
Was the illumination uniform in nature?
Yes. It wasn't really bright. It was kind of like dim, but you could still see stuff pretty clearly.
And were you moving on your own power?
At first, no. Later on, I was.
Was there any different feeling in your movements as far as moving on the craft and moving around in your house or outside?
It felt like it was a different pressure inside the craft. And that when you move, it was almost like moving through like a heavy fog or water almost.
Did you recall any smells or anything about the air?
Kind of a metallic smell in a way, but also kind of not really moldy smell, but it was kind of a weird smell, put it that way. I've never encountered before.
Did they seem to be emotional, unemotional, detached? Did they seem like computers?
Not really computers though, but their emotions weren't showing like humans do. Basically, they don't wear their emotions on their sleeve. They're like business as usual kind of thing.
Do they have any kind of uniform or clothing?
They wore no clothing.
And could you get a sense of sex as far as male, female?
They had different characteristics on themselves. I didn't see any female versions of them at all. Just mostly male from my recollection.
How big were they?
They were about 5 foot, anywhere from 5 foot to 6 foot tall.
Any sense of weight, uh, if you were to guess?
140 pounds, 150 pounds maybe, if that.
When they communicated with you, did it sound in your head like it was somebody talking in English in the human dialect, or was it synthesized? How did the telepathy work?
They spoke to me in their language, but I understood it in my mind in English, so that makes sense to you.
And when you talked back to them, did you actually use your voice, or did they know what you were thinking?
They knew my thoughts. So I just could communicate that way.
Did they know all of your thoughts, or just thought you were projecting to them?
Good question. That one I don't know, to be honest.
And do you recall any more experiences with them after the experience in which you actually went to a doctor to get checked out, and they found the hole in your nuts?
Over the past couple of years, I've had some really vivid UFO dreams in the sky, basically, and with various races up there fighting, basically, or just flying over, checking things out on the planet, more or less. It's always at nighttime too in my dreams. It was never a daytime experience.
Has anyone in your family had similar episodes that they've shared with you besides seeing a UFO or the farm incident, in which they've come forward with a similar story?
It's not something I really bring up to my family usually, just more conspiracy people, because you want to be, labeled as a loon, whatever, or a big woo-woo, whatever. But my brothers have also seen UFOs too, and they've talked about it a little bit, but we've never gone in depth about it. I know when I was in Florida, I asked my brother, ever seen anything weird in the ocean, whatever. He said he saw this one craft in the ocean one time. It's nothing like he's ever seen before. It just hovered over the ocean at a fast rate of speed. Which could be a military, because there's not military bases in Florida. But he's seen some weird stuff in the skies in Florida too, he told me.
Have you ever read any stories that stood out to you that were so similar to your own experience that you had that oh crap moment, get my stuff together and tell people about this?
Two movies stick out: Fire in the Sky and the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. The Fire in the Sky one, because he was just terrified of the aliens and what they were doing to him, basically. Just primeval fear come over you, basically, when they're doing that stuff to you. Because your mind really just comprehend, the alien creature, probably. Every end, you have no idea what they're going to do to you.
Have you had any similar experiences with missing time as in the Fire in the Sky story?
Actually, recently, earlier this year, I had some missing time. I was on my computer, and I swore to God it was 3 o'clock in the morning. The next thing I know, I look at the computer, it's like 5:30.
In the morning?
Yes. I was missing 2.5 hours of time. And after I saw the 5:30 time, I was really thirsty. Almost like dehydrated,
So that seems to be a consistent quality about these. You're always thirsty after this happens.
Yes. I've had a couple episodes of missing time throughout my life.
What was the longest?
5 hours.
And were there any witnesses to that missing time, as in the Walton incident?
No, none. I wish there was some, though. But there was none.
Do you recall these beings ever telling you about your own future, or about something that would happen as far as society or as far as an individual in the near future that came to pass?
This is probably the part I really don't want to say anything about. But on the time they told me that there's going to be something that's going to happen to the human race where it's almost wiped out. They said it will be in natural events, but we're not going into detail about it.
No idea of when this is going to happen or what it's going to.
Within the next 50 years, they said.
Do they seem concerned with that?
They do. Because they don't want to see our species wiped out. And at our technology level, we have no way of stopping what's coming. That at least 90% of the human race will be wiped out from it.
And do they give a sense of why they would not interfere to stop it?
It's beyond their power.
And when was this? Was this during the same incident in which you were in the craft and walking around?
The same one with reptilian orange brown creatures.
Okay.
They did tell me their species name, though, but I've since forgotten and I should have wrote it down.
Did they give you a sense of what their society is like or what their culture is like?
It's almost alien to our knowledge of how a species, acts more or less. There is no crime on their planet, they said. There is no religion, but they do believe in a higher power, they said.
What about economy? Any sense of hierarchy as far as economic?
They don't use any kind of currency or money at all, they said. They're beyond that.
Do they have any sort of political system or any tree of leadership, or is it totally alien to what we would consider?
It's totally alien. They do have a council that helps rule their planet.
Did they say anything about humanity as far as whether or not?
Sorry?
Did they say anything as far as whether or not the human race was unique to this planet, or is the human race something that exists in other parts of the galaxy?
Originally, they said we didn't belong here. That we were placed here.
Did they place us here?
When I asked them that question, they just smiled at me. They wouldn't say anything either way. I mean, if they're influenced or testing with our DNA, and maybe they do have a hand in, us being here, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of look over us like a child almost, That's kind of feeling I got when I was on the shelf, that they look at the human race like we're a child, basically. That we're not quite knowing what we're doing yet. We're stumbling around in the dark, more or less.
Did they give any reasons that they believe that our race is so special? Did they tell you anything about traits of humanity that they find beautiful or repulsive? Any indication of why they would want to preserve?
They said if we do go on, we're going down one of two paths. That we're going to be a warlike race, or we're going to be a race capable of doing great things in the universe. And they said they do not want us to go the warlike race path because other species may intervene when it comes to that.
These other species are, I would say a few of them, if they exist, are probably a little more technical adept than we are. Would you have the same opinion of that?
Yeah, they're light years beyond what we're capable of doing right now.
Sure. Do they have music? Do they have imaginations, or or do you think their existence is more centered upon exploration and discovery of how things work?
More toward exploration and discovery of things, how things work. They say they do relax to sounds, though. Not really music, but sounds. Certain vibrations and sounds of stars and other things in the universe that comforts them.
Do they give you any indication of what their power is like, or what kind of power they use to get here?
From what they told me, from what I would understand, they said they create a certain vibration in the craft, which allows them to almost warp or go through wormholes throughout the universe, basically. That's not based on nuclear technology or a liquid fuel system, but their propulsion system has the craft vibrate to a certain level where it allows it to travel instantly somewhere else. If that makes sense at all.
And do they give you an indication that they would be back?
Back for me or back in general?
Either way.
Both, yes.
Do they talk to you differently as you mature, or do they communicate with you differently? Do they let you have more information, or do they seem to be consistently?
More information as time goes on, as if they're preparing me for something.
Did you ever ask them why you?
I have asked them that. It's because my DNA is unique in some ways. They wouldn't elaborate any more on that, though. That certain human beings are abducted because of their DNA and their potential. And they left it at that.
If you were to summarize this whole experience, what would you say about it?
My whole overall experience with this whole thing, basically, is that we're definitely not alone in the universe, and that we have visited it since our creation, our conception, basically. And different species are out there that are curious about us. Perhaps somewhere out there, kind of, they need genetic material or resources, and they really don't care about the human species. And other ones are here to help us. If we know how to ask them to. But the whole concept, that we're the only species in the universe is just garbage. I think the universe is teeming with life. Life beyond our expectations and what we can comprehend at times. I think we, as a human species, have great potential if we don't kill our own race off, through nuclear war or nuclear meltdowns, CERN perhaps. And if we do learn to work together, live together, we too will be traveling the stars in the future. And who knows what we're gonna encounter. Let's hope that our immaturity of a warlike species does not carry on when we do travel out there, And that I do feel at some point in the future that discernment will happen. Disclosure will happen, Either the governments of the world will tell us what's going on, or suddenly one day we'll wake up and there's hundreds of saucers everywhere in the planets. They say, "Hey, we're here. Let's talk." But I don't think they can keep this covered up too much longer. There's too much more evidence coming out. Many people are coming forward. High in governments, high in military have come out recently. Even the astronauts have come out saying, "Hey, there's life out there. We don't know what it is, but it's been watching us for a while now." And I do think when it does happen, though, that our society will change overnight, hopefully for the better. Hopefully everyone won't be panicking in the streets, freaking out. Maybe we'll say, "Hey, all this petty fighting is just bullshit, and maybe we need to learn to work together for the greater good." So maybe one day we can travel the stars and we get a race that's totally alien to us. And maybe we'll learn more about ourselves as well as the universe.
Did they give you an indication that the governments of the world do know that they are here?
Well, they said they do know, and they do not like our governments. They're not to be trusted. They do not have the best interest in their mind, basically, about their people. That almost every government system they come across on the planet is very corrupt.
And you also mentioned harvesting DNA. Was that a reference to, in the other alien races, specifically, was that a reference to the Greys?
It was a reference to the Greys. From what I heard from them and my own observations throughout the years, that they were a very cold, emotionless race, basically. That something went wrong in their home world or their genetics, and they need material to keep going on. I also got the feeling, too, that these Grey type aliens are not really friendly toward any other alien races either. Can you describe their home world to me a little bit, too, if you were interested in that?
Yes, please tell us about it.
They have 5 moons, 2 of which have life on them and have an atmosphere. They have much less water than we do, probably by half. That Earth is also very unique because how much water it has. Most life-giving planets, they said, do not have as much water as Earth does. That we are a rarity in that aspect. Their plants and animals are nothing like ours at all. It'd be totally alien to us. And they build their buildings and their society along the side of the environment so it doesn't harm it too. They have the best interest of the planet in mind. That's so we do not have our best interests of the planet Earth, and we are polluting it more than we know.
Did they give any sort of indication on whether or not we are the first intelligent species on this planet? Or at least the first sentient intelligent species?
They said that we were not the first ones, that there has been other societies before us on this planet.
Did they describe those to you?
They did not. They said some of them were way more advanced than what we are now.
They give you an indication that life throughout the universe is more of a consistency than a rarity? Or is it such a rarity that even though there's thousands of them, they're so far apart and so unconnected that they're not able to communicate and recognize the existence of the other ones?
They described me there's different levels of civilizations out there, basically. Ones who can travel the stars, ones who cannot. And ones who can actually travel between universes, too. There's more than one universe out there. It's a multi-universal system. Yeah, we really don't know as much as space as we think we do either.
Did they give you any information on knowledge that would be considered a breakthrough, considering our current level of advancement, technology, and scientific knowledge?
I know they said that with us experimenting with particle colliders, that we'll discover things that we never thought was possible before. But we have to be careful with it too, though, because it can be a very dangerous machine. They said they were really interested, though, on the particle colliders in general, though. That was a good step forward to learning more about the universe, but we have to be careful how we use it. And that our nuclear power is very dangerous, and we should not be using it at all. There's other means of providing power that would not be so dangerous.
They give you a hint at what that would be?
They say it's a field in science we have not yet discovered yet, but soon will. They would not give any hints at all. So, we had to discover it all on our own. And then once we do discover that source, that would be the means of traveling to different star systems, as well as changing life on Earth forever.
As far as biological or medical technology knowledge, did they give any indication that they were willing to give us some insight on what we may or may not be doing that could help humanity as far as medicine goes?
They said that everything that we have disease-wise can be cured, and that if we have the means of regenerating our own cells in our bodies, we could live thousands of years like they do. Because of our advancement in society and stuff, they will not give us information to us till we mature a little bit more. That they seem to me, though, they have like things they can do for us and things they can't do. Something they go by like a prime directive in Star Trek, basically. Some things they can help with, some things they're forbidden to do. They would not get into that at all. So when the time was right, they would make it known.
Did they let you know that we're not the only ones they're watching? Or did they say that they're specifically... Are they assigned to the human race in some capacity?
We're unique to them, but there's other races they do watch too.
Okay.
They watch over races who have not yet have the ability to travel the stars yet. See what direction they're going to go. They will be going into, basically.
Did they indicate if any races were also watching them?
They said they are in contact with other races, though. Some are friendly, and others are somewhat hostile. But the hostile ones are rare, they said. As you grow in technology, you also grow in maturity too, they said. In some ways. Some races do not, and it's the ones that we watch. That's why they do not like the Greys too much. Because they're not considerate to any other races except for their own. They said they're a very selfish race. They don't socialize other alien species unless they have to.
Have you ever talked to anyone with a similar experience in person, whether related or not?
I have.
And were their experiences similar to yours?
In some aspects, yes. They were taken aboard, done experiments upon them, and were told some knowledge, basically.
And was it the same reptilian-like race?
No, it was the Greys.
No. I'm not asking you to do their interview or to answer their questions, but were there any consistent experiences that these people have had with this so-called gray race that stood out to you as far as being the same story and something that we might want to watch out for?
Everyone I've talked to about the Greys say they're a very emotionless race, and they don't care if the experiments they do on people cause them pain, basically. It's like a business as usual, no emotions whatsoever. They're not even sure if they're capable of emotions, to be honest.
For the race you encountered, that seems to be unique to your experience. Have you came across in your research anyone else that has specifically said that they've encountered this specific type of alien?
None to my knowledge. Seems pretty unique to me, basically. It's like almost like a reptilian species with like orange, brown, just skin, basically, scaly in appearance. I mean, I've heard other stories about reptilians over they were like greenish color or whatever. So most of the time you hear about abductions, it's usually the Greys or reptilians or some other species. So this one's kind of unique.
Do they seem to have a preference on humanity as far as system of government, religion, race, anything like that? Or did they give any sort of indication that humanity has to be unified?
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. Did they give you any indication that they have a preference as far as human beings on a level of politics, race, religion, maybe something other than DNA?
They're more curious about the more advanced nations of the planet, basically, and their technology,
Right.
and how they interact with the society, basically. And they can't understand, they said, why we have so many wars all the time. That the reasons for these wars are petty and can be worked out easily.
Well, a lot of humans would tend to agree with that. Do they give you an indication of how far away they are? Or how fast they can get here?
With their technology level, they said they can get here in a matter of minutes. When I said to them, doesn't take a huge energy source to do so? And they said yes. Well, once they learn how to discern the vibration and learn how to warp space to a certain degree, there's no place they really can't go.
Do they all look the same, or are they like people? Do they have different traits, different things to where you could tell, well, that's so-and-so and such and such?
They were all pretty much hairless, basically. I didn't see any hair on them at all. They had different shades to them, though. Different shades of brown and orange, basically. They weren't all the same color.
Do they indicate whether or not they have a diet or nutritional requirements, or have they moved beyond consuming organic matter?
They have to consume food, basically. But they can more or less replicate, like you see in Star Trek, basically, to what they want. Thought it was kind of neat and unusual.
Were you ever able to ask them whether or not they have their people here among us that may be disguised and working alongside of us in some capacity?
They said they have many mentor bases in the oceans, as well as the moon and various planets in our solar system, as well as other alien races do too. But you'd never able to pick them out because they're cloaked to a certain degree.
Was the disaster that you talked about earlier that they indicated may happen, did they say that that's a certainty that is going to occur within the next 50 years?
They said there's no way to prevent or stop it. That they themselves went through a certain experience thousands of years ago. And he lost half the race because of it. Theirs was due to a huge solar flare. Well, they were prepared for it to a certain extent, though they could not save everyone, though.
And did they also suggest in this that they were watching our star closely? What we would call the sun.
You said our star is going through some changes, though, that some can be detected by us and some cannot be, basically. It's going through a certain phase, basically, that could change things on the planet.
So it's more unique than a typical solar cycle where you have what we understand is a solar cycle occurring.
Yes.
Okay. Did they indicate whether or not the governments of the world were aware that there was something going on with it?
They said they were, and that's why they're building these domes and these seed banks. And they didn't want to tell the public about it because everybody would freak out, basically. Well, they said, well, some governments of the world know what's going to happen, and there's nothing they can do about it but prepare for it by means of underground bases and seed banks so that the human race might survive.
Do they give you any advice to pass along to people as far as increasing their level of survivability in such an incident?
They said when this happens that the best place to go would be underground.
Did they hint to any sort of warning that humanity may see ahead of time? Is it more of something that we're just going to have to figure out on our own?
We'll start to see it coming, though, but by the time we see it coming, it'll be too late, they said. I kind of have in my mind, more or less, that it's going to be something to do with the sun, basically, from the hints I've gotten and stuff, and just from, feeling, basically.
When was the last time you saw a UFO? Was it in your Florida vacation, or was it more recent than that?
Probably more recently. I was looking in the sky one time and saw what I thought was a star, basically, changing different colors, then all of a sudden it disappears. And stars don't normally do that, And I've heard from other people the same thing, basically, recently, too. They looked in the sky and see some weird object, and, they think it's a star, basically, and either it disappears or it streaks across the sky.
When you say a UFO, do you think that it's the same race that you've had an experience with, or do you think you're seeing the multiple races coming and going?
Probably seen multiple races coming and going.
The triangular-shaped craft that you mentioned earlier, would you associate that with the same species?
No, I would not. I don't think it's one of ours either because it made no sound, like I said. Unless we have that technology now. But when I saw that, it was when I was probably around 1993 or whatever, It just amazed me how close it got to the ground, and just when I got out of my car, just no sounds whatsoever, and just like, wow,
I'm sorry to revisit another issue, but you mentioned the hole in your nose that your doctor found, and also the handprints on the window during the farm incident.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, has there been any physical trace evidence of a visitation of any kind?
Other than that, probably not. No, most likely not. All I can remember, basically, just the scratch marks, the little scoop marks, and of course the going to the doctor and him pointing out there's almost like a drill hole in my nose bone. That there freaked me out.
Have you ever seen a specialist in either skin or muscle tissue about the scoop marks and had any of them examined?
No, I have not.
Have you ever undergone hypnosis therapy regarding
No,
these cases?
I have not. I would like to, though, but I have not at this point. Almost kind of scared what I'll find out, though,
Well, it's
curious.
a fascinating story, and it has frightening implications if it's true. And I'm not saying that it's not. You believe it's true. And I'm not one to question that.
What I believe, though, Entropy, is that all these experiences I had, all the dreams, all the fascinations, I do believe something did happen.
Right.
Whether the mind interprets that and maybe twists a little bit, who knows? But I know something happened to me. I mean, especially with the drill and the nose bone, all the dreams I have and stuff, and the fascination I have with UFOs in general since a kid. I'm almost 100% sure something has happened to me in the past. Leave it at that.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time, and at this moment, I'm going to stop recording. We'll take questions from the live audience, and that's a very fascinating story, very frightening in some aspects, especially concerning the future of humanity and whether or not we may destroy ourselves and the challenges that nature itself is going to present in our near future. And thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on LOP Radio.
Thank you, Entropy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.